You're listening to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast, where we discuss whatever the fuck we want to. And yes, we can put sex and drugs and Jesus all in the same bed and still be all right at the end of the day. My name is Devanin, and I'll be interviewing guests from every corner of this world as we dig into topics that are too risque for the morning show, as we strive to help you understand what's really going on in your life. There is nothing off the table, and we've got a lot to talk about, so let's dive right into this episode. Hello, all of my delicious, beautiful children out there, and welcome back to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. My name is Devanin. My name is indeed Devanin, and I'm your host. I have with me the great, mighty, powerful, clear-minded, and strong-thinking Dave Albin.
Wow, you go, bro. That was cool. It's nice to be here, man. Thanks for having me on your show. It's an honor.
Absolutely. And before I get too into it, I want to thank everybody for supporting the show. Our website is sexdrugsandjesus.com. I also have downunderapparel.com, my retail line, and we're on YouTube, Sex, Drugs, and Jesus Podcast. Thank you for your donations on Patreon, Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo. And so, yeah, Dave Albin, as y'all can see from his beautiful background there, Firewalk Adventures is the name of his organization, and he's going to tell you all about that in just a second. I'm going to read through his bio for you all right now, though. So, Dave is the #1 Firewalk instructor in America. Firewalking is a 1,000-year-old rite of passage ritual where you literally walk across hot, burning coals. Having worked for Tony Robbins for over 19 years and starting Firewalk Productions in 2014, Dave has firewalked hundreds of thousands of people, I think somewhere in the 500,000 range. He and Tony Robbins set a world record in London in 2005, walking over 12,300 people, y'all. His success has a scary and violent past. On June 8th, 1988, he put a gun to his head to stop the excruciating pain from both drug and alcohol addiction. 2023, this year right here, will mark 35 years of sobriety. Congratulations. Dave's clients have included the likes of Google, NASA, Notre Dame, to name a few. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks. That was a mouthful.
You know what?
Again, it's great to be here. It's always an honor.
Yeah, when you got the history, you got to talk about it. So y'all, on this show, we're gonna get into this firewalking and talk about some of the myths surrounding it and all the good and the bad and everything in between. So let me see. I love it. I love it. I love it. So much content here. Talk to me about this suicide attempt. In researching you, I saw that you started drinking at 11. I think your parents may have been into alcohol. How did you go from that to wanting to kill yourself?
Well, it started a little earlier, when I was around, 2 months before I was born, my biological father, he had hurt himself in the Korean War. He was a pilot. We don't know exactly what happened, but they put a plate in his head to save his life. Well, it also took his life. And the reason behind that is because he was in so much pain on a regular basis. He used to say stuff to my mom all the time. He didn't know how much longer he could take it. So sure enough, 2 months before I'm born, he turns to mom and said, "Hey, I'm going to the grocery store." Never saw or heard from him again. So we don't know 100% what happened, but because he did talk about taking his own life, my mom just made the assumption that that's what he did. So when I was born to a single mother. She already had 2 boys from a different man. She was living with my grandmother and another cousin and myself when I was born, 6 of us living in a 1-bedroom apartment. Mom worked at the Roosevelt Hotel. She was a server and she worked her ass off. But just like all the moms and the dads back from my parents' era, they were, I believe, the most amazing history of people that's ever walked the planet. I say that because they saved the world. My mom and dad and all my friends' moms and dads saved the world, literally, because while my dad adopted me, was over in Europe fighting the Nazis, my best friend's dad, who lived 5 doors down, his dad was in the Navy fighting the Japanese in Pearl Harbor, right? So when all the men went off to war, Guess what? Guess what the women did? Everything, right? They did everything. Bro, they built Jeeps. They built tanks. My mother was known as Rosie the Riveter. She worked for McDonnell Douglas. She built airplanes. She drove rivets into the wings. That's literally what she did. So they knew hard work, and they also knew stress, right? Because when you're in a war like that, fighting too, it's pretty scary times. That's for sure. And we're also talking about our parents came out of the Great Depression. Back in those days, my mom, 8 kids. Guess what they did every morning when they got up? They grew their own food. They sewed their own clothes. If something broke, they fixed it. Times were super, super hard, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. So, I give kudos to my parents' generation big time.
Well, wait a
And
minute.
so the bottom line was, man, she was doing the best she could. Well, when I turned 5, she knew she couldn't take care of me anymore, my mom. And she did a very loving thing. She went to her sister, the oldest of 8 kids, and said, "Will you adopt David?" Bob and Pat Albin, my aunt and uncle, by birthright, said, "Yes, we will." And they did. So I moved from Hollywood to Long Beach, really nice part of town, close to Seal Beach. You could ride your bike to the beach. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm 5. We went camping. We went over. Bob, who, now is my dad, right? He was a highly decorated officer in World War II. He had career military, Army, career military, also the National Guard. He was a very, very respected man in terms of what he did. He was an area maintenance officer for as an example, when a truck or something would break down in Vietnam, it was my dad's job to get it back to the US and get it fixed. That was basically his job. So anyway, my life was glorious. Then on the first day of summer, 1964, this is the very first day of summer, my mom, I'm in the TV room. She goes, "David, come into the kitchen. We need to speak with you." And I come in, and here's what I'm thinking is going to happen. They're going to tell me we're going camping, because we did that a lot. We went camping all over California, literally Yosemite, Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead, Lake Havasu. So we went everywhere. So I'm thinking mom's just going to tell me where we're going camping, right? I don't know what's going on. And she sets me down at the kitchen table, and my dad's here and my mom's here, and she puts her hand on my head and she said, "David, what we need to tell you is we're not your parents." Oh, what? What do you mean you're not my parents? Of course you're my parents. That's like walking outside, seeing the sky's blue and go, "No, that's the sky, but it's not blue. It's pretty blue to me." And my parents looked like my parents to me. So that was a very interesting moment in my life. My life took a pretty interesting turn right there. Shortly after they told me this, oh, by the way, let me back up, left out a part. She said, "Hey, by the way, your Aunt Dean?" "Yeah." "Well, she's actually your mother. She's actually your biological mother." And I was like, I didn't even really like her. And the reason I didn't like her is because every time she was around me, she wanted to be next to me. She wanted to hold me. She wanted to put her arm around me. She wanted to touch me. She wanted to kiss me, hug me. Well, duh. I was her son, right? I didn't know that. I just thought she was overly affectionate or manic, if you will. And come to find out, she was actually manic. But it was nothing ever inappropriate. It was just, you know what I mean? It was just, she would wanted she was all over me, but I was her son, man. And I understand that today. I love that. I respect that. And so that's how that kind of day went. Well, I don't know exactly the timeline, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe even it might have been a month or so. Mom and dad went to the grocery store and they left me home. They did that back in the 60s. You did that all the time, right? You'd leave your kid home. It was okay. You call the neighbor across the street and say, "Hey, Joanne, Bob and I are going to the grocery store. David's at home. If he needs anything, can he just call you or come over?" "Yeah, sure, of course. Tell him to come over. Tell him to come over now and we'll fix him a fried bologna sandwich." Man, am I a product of the 60s? So anyway, they went to the store that day. Well, and so I had watched these 2 beautiful people who were my mom and dad, who are now not my mom and dad, right? All the confusion with that. And they started drinking. And when they started drinking, things got bad really fast. Mom wasn't a mean drunk. Pat wasn't a mean drunk, but Dad, Bob, was. He was not a nice guy when he got alcohol into it. So I'd watched this transformation of these two people. And so they're drinking this. I have no references for that. I don't know what it is. But when they left that day, I knew where it was. They were hiding it in plain sight. And I went over and I took it out of the cabinet, and it was a half gallon of brandy. And Savannah and I took a coffee cup and I filled it halfway, and I downed it and I drank it. And I never had a chance. None. Zero. I believe I was an alcoholic right on the spot. There was alcoholism in my family. It was already there. And I was no exception to it, because as a very young age, 11 years old, I'm drinking brandy, and, it was like pouring rocket fuel into my body, if you can imagine. It just took over. It literally took over my mind, my body, my physiology, all of it. And all I knew is that I wanted more. And so if that's alcoholic thinking, and I had it right on the spot, which I have learned today, it is alcohol. So, life just kind of went boom, 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 boom around that. I didn't do well in school. I didn't play well with others. I had a lot of, there was a lot of stuff going on that I was dealing with at the young age of that. So by the time I was a junior in high school, junior, they pulled me into the principal's office and said, "Albin, you're out. You're done. We're expelling you from high school." Okay. I didn't mind. I didn't care. And here's why. There was nothing that they were teaching me that moment in my life where I thought it would influence how I was going to make a living or what I wanted to do when I grow up. I had some really interesting beliefs about money at that point in my life. And the reason I did is because I was already an entrepreneur. Now, in the mix of all this chaos that was going on in my home, there was also some really good stuff, right? Like my mom we had a pretty nice backyard. It had a big L-shaped planter, and she grew flowers, beautiful, gorgeous flowers. You name them, she grew it. Roses, carnations. I mean, all of them were back there. And so what she would do is she would cut those flowers. She would cut them at an angle at the bottom, not at the bottom, but at an angle. And what that did, it opened up more surface area. So when she put water on them, they drank more water. It was really interesting. And then she would take those and make beautiful bouquets for me to take out on the street and sell the flowers on the street corner. And so she would put them in a bucket, right? And then she would pour a little bit of 7-Up into the water. Well, guess what that does? It prolongs the life of the flower by almost 100%. So if they would normally last a week, they'll last 2 weeks. The flowers that the people that drove by when I, as a little boy, selling them out on the street corner, when they bought those flowers, they started noticing it right away. Why do your flowers outlast the florist? 2 weeks opposed to a week. Try it, guys. Anybody listening to the podcast, go get some flowers from the grocery store, cut them at an angle, arrange them, put your water in, and then put a little bit of clear 7-Up or Sprite in the water and watch what happens. You want to impress your spouse? Go do it. It's pretty awesome. I've been doing it for a long time, and I learned that from my mom back in 1960, 64, whatever it was.
Now
So
hold up, wait, just a second. That's an interesting one that I have not heard before. And I've been gardening for a long time. But I'm certainly going to try it. Before we get on with the rest of that leading up to the suicide attempt, I
yeah,
wanted to go back and get a little bit of clarity. When
sure.
you said that your dad went to the store and didn't come back, does that mean like there was no funeral, there was no body found, like you just
I know nothing. That's all I know. Yeah, great question. I don't know that I've ever been asked in that way. So thank you for asking that. No, I never really found out. I didn't find out anything. Number one, was he remarried? Was he married before? Did I have stepkids? Right. Or half brothers and sisters, I should say, not step. Right. So I don't know that. In fact, part of the story is when my biological mother passed away, I actually bought her from California. We had a farm in Virginia. My wife and 2 kids had a beautiful farm in Virginia. And when mom got bad, I brought her to the farm. Well, when we transferred all her stuff and after she passed, there was a book And in that book, it was pilots in Korea. And when I found the book, because I'd never heard the story, nothing, I never got clarity about, any of that. But I had his name on my certificate of live birth, Jonathan Eisler. And so when she passed and I found that book on the pilots, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to see my dad for the first time. And we went through the book and didn't find it. My wife went through it and she's good at finding stuff. My wife at the time, my kid's mom, she did she went after it because she wanted to know too, because that's her kid's grandfather, right? So we all wanted to know. We all wanted to see a picture of him and so on. I never got that. I've never seen a picture of him. I don't know the backstory. I don't know about his life. And that's been a roller coaster that I've rode for a long time. I did make peace with it. I have no resentment toward my dad at all. I believe that he did the best he could. He apparently was in a lot of pain and maybe he took his own life because he couldn't take the pain. I don't know. All I know is he gave me life, which gave my kids life, which now has given my grandkids life. So to that and for that purpose alone, I made peace with my dad a long time ago.
There's a lot to be said there, and I'm sorry that you had to go through all that, but the lesson that the world can extract from that is learning to forgive people and letting it heal and fade with time, even though you never got that apology from them, you never got that explanation from them. Because what I see happen way too many times is people do things that hurt people, and it's like we can get into this state of being angry because they never explained it or they never said they were sorry. It, by extension, giving that person who hurt you power over you. So what you're talking about is like detachment, letting go and forgiving, which is very, very healing and powerful. So, I really, really encourage people to stop waiting for apologies that really aren't going to come, and explanations. So some people are still alive and don't apologize to people. You see what I'm saying?
Oh gosh, I know. In fact, I, I believe, well, gosh, there's a ton there. To me, it's even deeper than that. The reason that, and because I made peace with my father, I love him and I appreciate him and I adore him, all those things. I have no idea what he was going through, right? So why even go down on that road I'm not going to create some victim mentality here because that's not going to serve the greater good. It's not going to serve me. And so I chose not to do it. In fact, what's really cool about because I did it that way. A couple of years ago, I'm out to dinner with my son, right? We're just out to dinner. And when we go out, I always like to take really good care of the server. Right? I like to have fun with them and be cheerful and kind and, just really, really overwhelm them with love. Why? Because my mother was a server at the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood. She worked her butt off, right? So I got it. I understood that, and servers in restaurants is, unfortunately, a lot of people go in there and they mistreat them. And that sucks. I hate that. I can't stand it when people do that. I've actually been out to dinner with somebody one time and I looked at him and said, if you ever do that again, we're done. I'll never go out to dinner with you again, ever. And so anyway, the bottom line is I'm having a really good time with the server and it's a seafood restaurant. It's here in Boone, North Carolina, not too far from where we live. And I'm eating, right? And all of a sudden I look up and then I look back at my son, dawns on me that I'm having dinner with my father's grandson. And I can see my dad in my son's eyes. And I truly believe had I not made peace with him a long time ago, I would have never had that moment. And so that was like a moment for me that, I don't know that I'm ever going to see a picture of my dad to this day. I don't. And I'm okay if I don't, because again, I made peace with the man. In fact, the father that raised me, as I was talking about Bob and the alcoholism and what went on with that, when he passed away after I had 10 years sober, this is my uncle, right? This is the man that's raising me, not my biological father who we're talking about. I went to his grave. He's buried at Arlington West. You have Arlington National Cemetery, right? It's Arlington, Virginia. Well, there's no more rooms. Now they created a big cemetery in California in Riverside, and it's called Arlington West. Went to my dad's grave, and I put my 10-year chip. This is a chip I got from Alcoholics Anonymous. So I went and made peace with my dad too, showing him my sobriety. So it's just, it really comes down to you create the story, right? Everything that happens to us, we decide we're the ones that create that story. I'd highly encourage you to create an empowering one, create one that's magnificent. Viktor Frankl wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning. And if you know anything about the book, I highly encourage it. It's not an easy read by any means. However, it's going to open you up to something that is beyond human, you know, capacity to understand how you could do that. He was in Auschwitz. Do you know the story? Have you read his book?
Not that book. I know that about Auschwitz.
Right. Okay. Well, Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he was in Auschwitz. They assassinated his family. They took everything from him. Everything. You stand outside cold and naked. You may get fed that day. You may not. You may go to the chamber. You may not. But they take everything from you. But what Victor figured out was there's something you can't take from me. The Nazis could not take this away from him unless he gave it away. And he relinquished it. What's that? His attitude. And so what did he do? He developed purpose. And the purpose was someone needs to get out of here and tell this story. And he did. And that's what kept him alive, his purpose. Same thing applies to our lives. All right. Why do people commit suicide? Because they've lost purpose. Direct. It's why we have a big problem in the country with veterans. And that's why I'm working on something here behind the scenes that I think we could save thousands of veterans' lives using the Firewalk and the board break experience. So, and we can talk about that down the road.
Tell me about tell me about how like your suicide situation, how it went, and how firewalking helped you with yours.
Sure. All right, so let me move it forward, right? I'm a kid. I'm in high school. I get kicked out. I get a job. I start going through life. I've been married 3 times. I'm in my 3rd marriage, right? So let's just move this, to 1988. I'm in my 30s, and I wake up that morning. I'm married to a woman who has 3 kids, or my stepkids. I'm living in the basement. They're upstairs, and I wake up that morning on June 8th, 1988, and I'm done. That's it. No more drugs. No more alcohol. No more pain, no more suffering, excruciatingly painful, physically and emotionally. And I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to put a bullet in my head. And as I'm contemplating the suicide, I have 3 kids upstairs, or my stepkids. I love them dearly. I'm like, dude, yeah, you pull that trigger and maybe your worries are over, but you're going to kill those 3 kids. You can't do that. You got to find another way, pal. I mean, I'm having this conflict with myself, this internal. I'm in a lot of pain, tons of pain, but I want it to stop. And so I'm like, you pull that trigger, now the cops are coming and the morgue's coming and the paramedics are coming and all the neighbors are going to know, the school's going to know. Again, my kids are going to suffer. And so is my ex-wife. She would have suffered. They would have suffered immensely. So the next thought I had was call Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, what's interesting about that? I didn't know who AA was. I had no idea. I had no references. I didn't know anybody at AA. I'd never been to AA or around it. Nothing. But there's the thought. Where did it come from? I get asked that. I don't know, but it was there. So call it divine if you want. Call it whatever you want. The thought came, and I made the phone call. Got this beautiful human being on the phone. I affectionately nicknamed her Madge. And the reason I did is because she talked like this. She probably smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day, right? So she was obviously a heavy smoker, at least it sounded like. But man, was she awesome. And she was kicking my butt because she was the gatekeeper. It's her job to make a decision about the person that she's talking to, whether she would call one of the guys at AA to come pick me up. And she did. So apparently I gave her enough information. I had a guy come pick me up. It was Lauren. Stayed with me all day, took me to 4 meetings, a perfect stranger. He took me to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30 meeting. And when I was at those meetings, it was an all men's group. At one of them, I don't remember which one it was, but they gave me a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And on the inside cover, they wrote, before you take that first drink, call one of them. They put their name and their phone number and sent me home with it. Well, the next day at about 8:00 in the morning, my phone rings and it's John from AA. It's like, He's a real cheerful guy, right? He's really up, been sober for many years. He's like, "Hey, Dave, good morning. How you feeling?" And I'm like, "How do you think I'm feeling? Are you kidding me? I want to kill somebody. I'm out of my mind right now." He's like, yeah. We hear you. Hey, listen, man, here's what I'd like to do. I know you live, we talked last night. He said, "You're right around the corner from me. Let me come pick you up. Let me take you to breakfast. Let's go to another AA meeting. And, let's you and I get to know each other." Perfect stranger. And I'm threatening him, and I'm real because I'm a very angry, dangerous person at that point. I'm homicidal. I'm suicidal, all of it. Here he comes, man. He came and he picked me up. And that's how my career started with Alcoholics Anonymous. Just embraced me. They loved me until I could love myself. They knew how bad I was hurt. And hell, they had done it. They'd gone through it. They know, right? So there's congruency there.
So
And
was it
so
so when did the firewalk did you use the firewalking at all to help you with the sobriety? Were you already sober by the
no,
time?
I was sober. So how that came to where that collided, right? When I was getting sober, I had insomnia. And so I was up late at night all the time. My sleep patterns were all over the place. And I was up late one night, early on in my sobriety, and there he was. I'm watching an infomercial. This is back in 1988, man. Mr. Enthusiasm, Mr. Gunthy Ranker himself, the master when it comes to these kinds of commercials. And so he was selling a program, Tony Robbins. He was the infomercial king. He owned the airways. Heck, he was on 4 or 5 times a night on different stations, all over the place. And so he was selling a program and I was watching him. And he said 2 things that absolutely influenced me to buy his program. The one thing he said was, "We'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure." And I was like, whoa, okay. Well, I played with that because I did drugs and alcohol to try to find some pleasure and avoid some pain. So that made total sense to me. And the other thing he said that got me, and by the way, I didn't like him. He was all motivated and Mr. Enthusiasm, and I wasn't. I thought he was pompous. Man, I didn't like the guy. But here's what he said that got me. He said, "We'll do more to avoid pain and gain pleasure." Then the other thing he said was, the driving force in our life, the way we make decisions, we do it out of inspiration or desperation. Whoa, okay. I'm pretty desperate. Broke out my American Express card. I called the number and I ordered his program. He sent it to me, right? Comes in a big box. It's a 30-day program, right? So you go through it for 4 weeks. Came on little white things called cassette tapes. Dates it. And I went through it. I did what the man told me to do and it worked. And that's all happening in 88, 89. In 1995, a buddy of mine who was into Tony Robbins called me on the phone and said, "Hey, Tony's coming to town live. Come on, man, go with me. Please go with me. I want to see this guy." "Fine, I'll go with you." Great. He made the arrangements. This is in 95. And so he called me back and said, "Okay, we're done. We're there. Picked our tickets up at Will Call. Everything's taken care of. Here's what they told us to do. Bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room." I tell you, that's an understatement. Anybody who's been to a Tony Robbins seminar that might be listening to this is laughing right now. Drink a lot of water. Stay hydrated. Bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. I said, "Dan, how much was the ticket?" He said, $695. Okay, don't worry. I'll play full out, right? I mean, what's that today? This is 95. That's $700. What's that equate to today?
Worse.
7.2 million? I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of money. Buy Bitcoin with it. That's what I could tell. And so as he's getting ready to get off the phone, he goes, "Oh, wait, hold on. I almost left out the best part." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Dude, we're going to be doing a firewalk." I remember thinking, "Oh, hell no. You are out of here. What do you mean a firewalk?" And you know what's interesting about that, Savannah? I didn't even know what that meant. I don't know what that is. I have no references for that. No, don't know what a firewalk is. I've never heard the term. But fire and walk going together didn't sound like anything that I would be doing. And up until that time in my life, I'm just getting sober. I'm sober a couple of years. Fear had made all my decisions for me, or most of them, 90% of them, right? So it lied to me and it shut me down and it all kinds of things from coming into my life. And that's what fear does, because fear's a liar. The fears you don't overcome become your limits. That's just the bottom line. And that's where I'm sitting in that moment. And so we go to here comes the big day. We go to the event. Tony took the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. I know many of your listeners may not know who Tony Robbins is. Go Google the guy, Tony Robbins, and you'll see a little bit. He's pretty well known in the personal development industry. He's probably number one in the personal development industry. And so Tony takes the stage at 2, right? Next thing we know, it's after midnight. I've been in a room with Tony Robbins for 10 hours. This is a 4-day event. It's called UPW, Unleash the Power Within, the Firewalk Experience. Well, I've already made a decision. I'm not doing the Firewalk. When my buddy called me and said, hey, we're doing a Firewalk, I went, no, ain't doing it. I didn't tell Dan that. I kept it up here because I didn't want to tell my buddy that I'm a coward, that I'm not going to do this Firewalk. But I just remember thinking, I'll go see Tony, but you don't have to do it. Well, it's midnight. I've been in the room for 10 hours, and all of a sudden Tony goes, take your shoes off. I'm like, oh, no. I see where you're going with that, pal. You're not going to trick me, right? Well, I'm in a room with 3,500 people. And guess what they're all doing? They're taking their shoes off. And I'm like, no, you idiots. Don't fall for it. Don't go towards the light, but it's so pretty kind of a thing, right? And they're like, you got to be kidding me. Well, it gets worse. As once he's got your shoes off, he's going to take you outside into this big parking lot where you're going to do this Firewalk, right? Well, he gets everybody to start chanting and clapping their hands. So now you got 3,500 people walking out there going, yes, yes, yes. And I'm walking out there going, no, ain't going to happen. It gets worse. When you get out there, he's got African drummers. So it's dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, what a dog and pony show this is, right? So how do you Firewalk 3,500 people logistically? Well, what you do is you build a giant fire and you let it burn for about 10 hours. You just throw cords of wood on it and it burns all day and it renders. So at the end of the night, you've got a big giant pile of coals, which is probably, that pit's 35 feet wide, 70 feet long. And it's a big giant pile of coals. It's gorgeous, beautiful. So what do? You take wheelbarrows over to that pit, you load them full of coals, you bring them back, and you lay 2 lanes of sod on each side of it. Sod meaning grass that you walk on. It's 3 feet wide, 15, 18 feet long. And then they just take a shovel from that coals in the wheelbarrow and sprinkle them on top, and that's where you walk. That's the Firewalk. Well, I'm not having any of it. Where am I? I'm hiding in the back. I went right to the back. When they did doing all this, I'm just like, look, I'll just go hide in the back. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's, who's going to know other than me, right? Well, here's the interesting part. Tony knows this is literally one of the most life-changing experiences any human will go through on this planet, by far. And I can back that up with having walked close to 500,000 people in my career. So he doesn't want you to miss out. So he knows there's people like me. There's lots of us. We're all hiding out in the back. It's the only place to go, right? So what's he do? He trains people to come find you. And so guess what? Next thing I know, I'm hiding in the back, and here comes this guy out of nowhere, and he makes eye contact with me. And apparently Robbins teaches him, once you make eye contact, don't take your eyes off, because here he comes. He's coming right at me. And he probably gets 20 feet from me, 15 feet from me, and he goes, and he's looking at me really funny, like there's something wrong with me, right? He goes, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. Of course, when we're not okay, what do we say? We lie, right? Oh, I'm fine. I'm good. No worries here, mate. Off with you. He looks at me, and after I said that, and he said, so are you going to walk tonight? And I said, absolutely not. And he said, hey man, it's cool. He said, no problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. But here's what's really interesting. Here's a stranger. I don't know who this guy is to this day. I wish I did. Because this one stranger has not only changed my life, my family's life, but hundreds of thousands of people in my world because of one guy and one question. And the question was, would you at least like to watch? And I'm thinking, well, okay, sure. I'll watch. Yeah, why not? It should be fun. Let's watch these people burn their feet off. Well, look, man, you can't see anything from where you are. I'm 100 yards away. I can see it, or excuse me, I can hear it. It's going crazy. People are chanting and clapping, and the drums are going, and people are already firewalking, and they're in the celebration and they're jumping up and down, and they're screaming, and they're celebrating. I mean, it's insane. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced in my entire life, other than a Tony Robbins seminar. And so I said, fine. I got in line. And now, again, I can hear it, but I can't see it. I've got 1,000 people standing in front of me. I can't see anything except a wall of people. And so I'm kind of walking along, and I'm walking along. And all of a sudden, this guy comes up to me. And he said, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. Phew, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what was that? Who was that? What was that for? So now I'm walking along, and I'm walking along, and all of a sudden I get to a point I can't see in front of me, but I can see at an angle down the side from me. And they're doing it. These people are walking on fire. And my brain is like, why? What would you do this for? Metaphorically, what's happening? And I'm mesmerized. I can't take my eyes off them. Every race, every creed, every color, they are walking on fire. There's no like, oh, the fire, this. No, everybody's walking. It's in that line. And all of a sudden I'm watching, and next thing I know, guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line. And I'm looking down, and Savannah and I'm looking at it. There's that grass. It's 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. The coals are bright red. My heart is pounding out of my chest. I'm scared to death. The wheelbarrow's there. You can feel the heat coming off. I mean, it gets real. It's real fast. There's a trainer stand.
Why did you get in line? Because you were watching
because he said, wouldn't you at least like to watch?
Right. So you were watching from the side, but that didn't.
No, I got into, he said, just follow the group up to the front. Eventually you'll be able to see it. Well, what really happened is I got in line. And so I just moved along with everybody else is what was happening. And then once I was able to see the people from the side, now I'm in goal. And then boom, because I was watching and I wasn't really looking in front of me. And then boom, there I am. I'm at the front of the line. Mm-hmm. And so it came on you like, out of nowhere. Now, remember, that guy came up to me and he said, hey, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. Well, they do that on purpose to get you ready. Because so now when I'm standing there, with my heart ready to beat out of my chest, scared to death, there's a trainer standing there. And the trainer goes, eyes up. And so I pulled my eyes up. Well, when I was in the room with Tony for 10 hours, he teaches you, don't stare at what you fear. Look to the end. Look to the celebration end. That's where all the reward is. That's where the life-changing part of this happens, is in the beginning and at the celebration end. And so now my eyes are up, and the trainer said, squeeze your fists and say yes. I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell. I was leaving a lot on the table. I was about 50%. And he could tell. He knew I was not in a peak state. So he screamed at me, like right here in my face. And I threw my hands in the air and screamed as loud as I could. And the trainer goes, go, go, go. Right? And I took off. Well, remember the guy? He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. I went. And so, here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. When you take the first step, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I guarantee you. So what Tony does is he places 2 people at the end of that fire lane in the celebration end. They lock arms and they catch you. And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And I'm wiping my feet and I'm kind of celebrating, and people are screaming around me. And it's pretty intense. It's awesome to be in it, but it's intense. And all of a sudden it dawns on me, I burnt myself really bad. And I look at my foot, I look at it, and it's dirty, but there's no burns. Oh, it's my other foot. No, same thing. It's dirty, but there's no burns. And so I'm standing there in the celebration. I just walked on coals that are 1,000 degrees. I did not burn myself, and I don't have a clue how I did it. I don't know. How do you do that? I don't know. I just did it. You know what I mean? You ever done something really cool, but you don't really know how you did it, but you take credit for it. Like, that's right. That's this guy. That's what I did. Well, that's the moment I was. And again, now now I'm down in the celebration end with 3,500 people who are celebrating like crazy. And at that moment of your life, here's what I can share with you. You think you can accomplish anything. It's like, where's the bus? Let's go to Everest. Let's go climb. You know what I mean? What's the next thing? But here's where it gets even more interesting. This is a 4-day event. That was day one, the
Wait a
evening
second.
of.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. I want to pause for a moment. It's very good that you got to this point. I want to stop since you just told about your first firewalking experience and talk about some of the things that people have spoken against it because I want to get your opinion on that. So, because there's like some myths that circulate, and I don't really have an opinion about it one way or the other. Like I've heard people say, like it is because you move so fast across the coals, or maybe they're not heated. What would you say to people who disbelieve that they're actually as hot as people claim, or some people think it's not real? What would you say to that?
Well, then come do it, and then let's have a conversation. Don't talk to me from a place of not knowing. You're not congruent. Again, I'm on the other side. Right? I firewalked to 500,000 people. My team has firewalked everybody from Usher to Oprah and a whole bunch of people in between. I'll tell you what, here's what you do. You have that doubt, fine. Go Google Oprah's firewalk. Then come back and let's have a conversation. Again, so from their perspective, it's not even fair. I won't even get into a conversation with somebody like that because I get asked that all the time. How can you walk on coals under 1,000 degrees? You know what my answer is? I don't know. I don't have a clue. I don't know the scientific I don't. I just know that you can do it. And that's what happened to me. I didn't know how I did it, but I did. I didn't burn myself. The coals were real. I can tell you that. Oh, you can feel the heat. It's not like you can't. But here's where it got interesting. Was the next day. This is the life-changing moment for me. Here's my aha moment. Was the next day. This is day 2. So we're in the foyer. We're getting ready to go into the venue. 3,500 people firewalked the night before. I'd never seen anybody getting along like this, humanistically. People were, first of all, I think pretty much everybody was on time. No one was late, right? Because you have this whole different attitude. You got leveled up last night, right? So your self-awareness, your self-belief, and your self-confidence went through the roof. But now you're in a group with them again. And so people are hugging, they're laughing, they're crying. They're getting along humanistically, unlike anything I've ever experienced, other than, again, a Tony Robbins seminar. And that's what got me. I was like, so did we drink the Kool-Aid last night? Is that what happened? So that firewalk got all of us to this point and leveled us up, our frequency. You better believe it did. Now, if you go research firewalking, it's been around 1,000 years. I'm just a guy that's out doing it here at the corporate level. But if you study the Phoenicians, the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the people of India, the Native American Indians, Indo-Europeans, it's been around for thousands of years. Not thousands, but 1,000 years. And guess what it is? It's a rite of passage. That's what they use it for. Not a motivational seminar. They use it for rite of passage. There's deep culture into the firewalk itself. And, we've lost that in America. We don't rite of passage our kids anymore. And we should. Let me give you an example. My daughter was 6 years old the first time she firewalked. My son was 9. And I can tell you, it influenced them like you wouldn't believe. But it's going to. One of the things that I do.
I can see on a mental and a subconscious level how doing something like that can inspire courage in people, because everything that we do, affects us in some, it's a way, whether we realize it or not.
100%.
And so, with all the things in this world reaching out for people's attention in order to drag them down and, and distract them and things like that, as people have a tendency to run from themselves. With a lot of the problems that people have, have you seen people healed, able to get encouragement from this simple thing here, great things can come from the littlest of things, like walking across fire. I'm not saying it's simplistic because it's a big deal to walk on fire, but it's not like it's as huge as going to school for 4 years to get a degree or anything like that. It's you're using an element of nature to make somebody feel like they've achieved something great, and then they basically alchemize that into other areas of their lives. And really it's according to your beliefs. So you know what? If some people have tried all these other stuff and they can't find encouragement, what the fuck with this hurt?
Well, okay, so you nailed it. Because up until so how am I living my life up to this point, right? I'm a doctor and, I learn all this stuff and I get it, the alcoholism and, my life and all that. But now all of a sudden I'm standing in a place where up until that firewalk, everything was, like you said, fuck everything and run. Fear, F-E-A-R, forget everything and run, right? But at that moment after the firewalk, the acronym changed because now it became face everything and rise. And I was being told in AA, false images appearing real. So remember what's happening here. The person, the AA and the 12 steps and all that, and the personal development industry had kind of collided in my life at the same time. And that wasn't really happening to other people. I mean, there's a few. So it just had a profound effect on me. It's just, I put so many things together in those moments that it was like, and here's what I believe. I believe that the two most important times in someone's life is the moment you're born and the moment you figure out why. And there's a backstory on that one too, because if you look ancestrally, what it took to happen for you to be, you and I right now, to be on your podcast, a lot of things had to go just right. It had to go perfect, as a matter of fact. Because my ancestors, your ancestors, everything they had to go through to get you here. And most of them suffered immensely. I mean, if you go back just 12 generations, that's 400 years, 400 plus years. That's about 4,094 people. And everything had to happen just perfectly. And I love your background because from the universal standpoint, everything had to go perfectly, or you and I are not sitting here right now talking about it. It's not the way it works. So the chances of being born is like 1 in 400 trillion anyway. So, and I think it's higher than that, but because that you have to go look at mathematically and scientifically. There's only 2 people on earth that can make you, right? Your mom drops a couple of 100 eggs in her lifetime. There's only one that could create you and created me. Dad's contribution of all the swimmers, right? There's only 1 in 60 to 100 million in that group, right? So dad's contribution. So if you think you're here by some accident, bullshit, stop lying to yourself. I do something, you'll love this. So when I talk to my groups, when I get hired by corporate America to come in and create this paradigm shift experience, I start my talk and I have a picture of a guy on the screen, on the stage, right? And it's a picture of a guy by the name of Eric Y.M.C.A. And it's clearly by the picture, he's standing at the top of Mount Everest, right? So I don't say anything about him. I just leave him up there and I'll come back 20, 25 minutes later. I'll say, hey, by the way, who can tell me where this guy's standing behind me? It's pretty obvious. If somebody always raises, I trick them. They raise their hand and they go, Mount Everest. And I go, that's correct. And let me tell you something else about Eric. He's climbed the 7 highest mountains on 7 continents on this planet. Let me say that again. He's climbed the 7 mountains on 7 highest mountains on 7 continents on this planet. Put that boy on a mountain bike, he can tear it up. Put him in a kayak, he can probably do just most any river on earth. But here's something you need to know about Eric. He's blind. So I did this purposely. I'm doing this for you, not to you, but for you. If a man can climb the 7 highest mountains on earth and he's blind, what bullshit have you told yourself about what you can't do? And I'll guarantee you that if you told yourself you can't do it, something you wanted to do, 99.9999% of the time, that's bullshit.
That
So right? So my encouragement is don't lie to yourself and don't negotiate with yourself. Step into your greatness, own it, and do great things. And
Right.
that's kind of where I was.
That
That's
reminds
what happened, because I went from attending a Tony Robbins seminar. In fact, I met one of Tony's trainers, and he said, I was talking to him. I'm like, man, you get to be in this environment all the time? He goes, yeah, all the time. And he goes, matter of fact, he goes, you see all those people over there with the black shirts and the pink writing? Yeah. He goes, they're volunteers, man. They're people just like you. They came to a firewalk and then they wanted to come back and be part of it and help. And they volunteer. So when you get home, go call Robbins Research. Tell them you like a volunteer crew application. I did.
that reminds me of the blind guy climbing the mountain. It reminds me of this Twitch streamer who I'm fond of, and he's like his hands like don't exactly like work, and so he has like this special setup so that he can still play video games and be a Twitch streamer. And and I really, 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 really respect him because he did not let his handicaps stop him just because he cannot pick up, a gaming controller like everyone else. He was like, fuck that. I'm gonna find a different way to make it work.
Yeah.
And and I look at him all the time on Twitch, and I'm just like in awe of how a life like his testifies against people, okay, who have perfectly working and able bodies, who
Yep.
allow their mental to fall and stop them from doing things, physically handicapped, the hands don't work, and he's playing the fuck out of these video games.
And whipping people's ass while he's doing it, right?
Right, totally doing that, totally
I
whipping
love
ass, and
that.
he's the
Beautiful.
creator, and, he is overcoming his mind. It's
Uh-huh.
all about the mind, and this firewalking sounds like it's something that has the power to rewire,
Oh, yeah.
somebody's mind. So what I wanna know is, has anybody ever been seriously injured through
No,
that you know of? Oh,
no,
that's a hard no.
that's a hard no.
And
Because
then
here's the thing, the perception is, it does seem like you could. You want to know what's dangerous? Go put your kids in soccer.
yeah,
That's dangerous. Okay. Firewalking is like, so you'll love this. So a few years ago, I got a call from this executive assistant of this CEO of this big company. And she said, hey, Dave, my name is so-and-so, and my boss wanted me to call you. And we want to talk to you about a firewalk, but my boss wants to meet you in person. I go, okay, well, here's my per diem per day. Fly me out there. I fly business class and I stay at these hotels. And she said, done. So they flew me to Arizona. And I got out there and she met me at the airport, took me to my room, got it all done, picked me up in the morning and brought me to breakfast at like 10:45, I think it was. And I think the meeting started at 11:30. And we go in this beautiful corporate building. It overlooks the desert. You go up to the fourth floor. They got a beautiful boardroom that looks out into the desert. It's gorgeous. I sit down, got my name tag there. All the people coming in. I don't know, there's a dozen people that come in. CEO comes in, goes to the head of the table and starts the meeting. And he says, hey, everybody, thanks for coming. As you know, we brought Dave Albin in from Firewalk Productions. We want to talk to him about a firewalk for our sales and marketing meeting coming up in such and such a date. So who here has got any questions? And the corporate attorney, which is sitting like 3 seats from me, says, I got a question. Right. This is their corporate attorney. He said, how many of our people are going to get burnt? And the way he said it was classical, right? Just a typical, and he's an old guy, and he's an old attorney, right? And I said, well, sir, that's a fair question. Absolutely. I'd want to ask it myself. And so to properly answer it so I can put it in perspective. So there's no doubt, I'm not leaving anything out. I need to ask you a question. How many of you in this room have ever taken your family or yourself to a beach, to a lake, or to a river, or to a pool and got yourself sunburned? And they all said, yeah, we've all done that. How much of you took your family back and did it a second time? Yeah, we pretty much all done that. And I go, let me tell you something. That's 100 times, maybe 1,000 times more dangerous than any firewalk you're ever going to do with me. And as soon as those words came out of my mouth, the CEO spoke up. And he goes, oh man, Mr. Albin, we've really made a big mistake bringing you here. And I thought, oh, he didn't like my answer. And he turns to his CFO who's sitting on his right, who, writes all the checks, right? And proves everything. The chief financial officer. He turns to him and he said, look, if this guy's good enough for Google and he's good enough for Tony Robbins, he's good enough for us. Book him. Let's go to lunch. Oh, right. But legally, people they're gonna ask that. How many people are gonna get hurt? How many people are gonna get burned? How many people are gonna get hospitalized? None. Zero. Can you get a burn? Absolutely. Welcome to life. The burn's gone in a day or two, in 24 hours, 48 hours. The burn's gone. It's a little tiny blister on your foot. But the badge of honor that you get to wear with all the other firewalkers that have been around for 1,000 years, and the ancestral side of that, yeah, you're walking to a beat of a different drum all of a sudden.
You know what I like about that? I love the fact that you said that you might get a little blister or something because that sounds very like realistic. I mean, but what I love about the way that
By the way, let me say something else. If you don't do it the way I teach you, you can get burned. Like, let's say you go stomping your feet through that fire and you jam a coal in between your toes. Did I tell you to stomp your feet? No, I said walk normal. Listen to my instructions. And when you get to the end, very clear, loud and clear, stop, wipe your feet, and then celebrate. Don't celebrate and forget to wipe your feet and stomp your feet. Because again, you got that little place in between your toes. And if you jammed your foot down and a coal goes in between it, that's not going to feel good. You're going to have a blister. It's probably going to last a week. So what? Where's the lesson? Oh, I didn't do it the way the instructor told me. Try that if you're a Navy SEAL. You better listen to your instructor. You don't become a Navy SEAL by sitting in a classroom. I know that's part of it, don't get me wrong. But where you become a SEAL is in the water. They break you at 3:00 in the morning, and they take you off the coast of San Onofre and throw you in. And then they start to tell you about all the different species of sharks that are in the water that will eat you. Not one SEAL's ever been eaten. Well, at least not a Navy SEAL.
what stands out to me, I'm glad the SEALs were not eaten. The Navy SEALs are not eaten. Is the way that like you and Tony, seem to think. I like it because it's it's counterintuitive to how most people think. Okay, it's it's like people who have been awakened or pulled out of the matrix, because what you were pointing out to them is that the way those people were thinking doesn't balance out across all areas of their life. So then they'll take hella risks over here and be fine with that. And then when it comes to this, act like it's too much. Like it doesn't balance out. And people live this way all the time. I think about how when COVID was like a big deal and everything like that. And I've known of people say that they were like out having sex and supposedly like wearing condoms. Okay. And I was like, what's the point of putting a condom on to protect you from a disease? Now, some STDs they can't fix. Some things you can get through sex still to this day, and there's no fix for it. But generally speaking, the things that people who were willing to do that were trying to protect themselves from were things that you could probably take a pill for. But the COVID could kill you in like 2 weeks from being airborne. So a condom can't protect you from that. So I was like, you're doing all of this, like those people going to get sunburned every weekend, but then they don't want to go hop across fire for a few minutes that it takes to get across there. So much risk over here, but like it doesn't balance out like the way some people think. And so what I love about y'all's
Yeah.
organization is that it's pulling that logic in and is making sure that all the boxes are square and everything checks out, from this aspect of life, that aspect of life, like it has to make sense all around.
Right. Well, it comes down to like, if you had less fear, what would you do? If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? How would it be that if you lived your life as though your prayers are being answered? How about you lived your life that things were happening for you and not to you? How about saying, I get to do this rather than I have to do this? Right? So it all comes down to your mindset. What are you telling yourself? And that's part of what I'm doing. I'm bringing attention to that part of it. Again, the fears we don't overcome become our limits. Because what doesn't challenge us doesn't change you. Period. End of story. You're not going to become, you're not going to live an extraordinary life by living on the couch. Because everything you've ever wanted to say, right over there, just on the other side of fear. That's where it is. And so the firewalk gives you an opportunity to break through all that. The other thing that I do, I take it to another level. And what I mean by that is we do the board break and the firewalk together. Then that really blows it out of the water. It is by far, there's nothing like what I create on earth. Because what we do with the board break, it's just a simple martial arts thing. Any martial arts person knows what I'm talking about with a board break. Because when you go from one belt to another belt, you have to break a board, right? You break it with your hand, you break it with your knuckles, you break it with your elbow, you break it with your knee, you break it with your foot, whatever. And you graduate in belts. Well, so what we do is we take the board break and I have them write something on front of the board that they want to move towards. I have them write something on back of the board they need to move away from. And then I have them write anybody's name on the board that they're in conflict with. This is huge. In other words, if forgiveness or reconciliation is part of that relationship, it ends tonight. Stop carrying that around with you. It ends tonight. And then to create the rite of passage, the ancestral side of the firewalk, I have them write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. And then we take them outside. We show them how to do it. It's a monkey paw. Boom, you break it. We set up the bricks. They drive down through them, or we hold them depending on the circumstances. They break the board. We bring them around. The fire's going. I've already had them ready to go to do it in the room. They come outside. They do their firewalk. They come back around. They throw their boards into the fire. Then I do a breathing exercise that's proprietary. And after the firewalk, and then I get everybody to hug and breathe together. And then I get it. What happens there is we get everybody's heart to calibrate. Yep. Everybody's heart starts beating at the same time. And so when you do that, you take a human that's been pulled apart because of mask wearing and vaccines and their political beliefs and all the bullshit. And instead of being ripped apart, they go, and it puts them right back in a humanistic format, which is where if you're going to be a CEO, you have a company of people. Do you or do you not want them all to be working together as a unit so that the production is high? Because if they're fighting or they're dissension, your production's going to go down. Every CEO, man and woman knows that. And if the CEO doesn't fix it, it's on them. Because basically when people hire me, it's one of three reasons. One, there's been a total breakdown of the company. Things are not good. And they're hoping that I can come in and put them back together and get them back to working as a unit. Number two, things are pretty good. Things aren't really good. They're not, they're not perfect, but they're not bad either. So they're somewhere in the middle, almost mediocrity. So they bring me in to go. Or one of my favorite is I just got back from MIT about a week ago. And we did a group, 65 people there. All of them were COOs. They were all chief, either financial officers or chief operating officers inside corporations, which meant they were the second in command. They're not the CEO. They're the second in command. We had 63 of them, I think. We had a good time. And the bottom line was there's a lot of companies that are doing really, really well. They're kicking butt, but they want to kick it up that little extra amount to go from 10% above 5%, if you will, when it comes to all that. So I just need to know what's going on when they hire me. Are they launching a new product? I mean, whatever it is, the firewalk and the board break together, in addition to, the finalization of the breath work at the end, is beyond extraordinary.
What results have you seen? I want you to tell me like financially, numerically, like the before and after from some of the companies that you've worked for. And also, do you work with individual people as well, or is it just the companies?
No, I've had several private individuals, celebrities, professional athletes get a hold of me, and I invite them. They can come up to my cabin. I live up in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm in the northwestern part of the state of North Carolina. So if you've ever heard of Boone, North Carolina, which is in the Appalachian Mountains, which is where App State University is, I'm 25 minutes west of there in the mountains. So my cabin sits at 3,500 feet. So I have an Airbnb, so the private client can come and do this privately. If they want to do it privately.
What about
The academy? The academy, right? It's coming up next week. So we're sold out. Been sold out for weeks. Where people come and then I teach them everything that I do, that I've done for 3 decades. So they come to the academy to learn all this: the board break, the firewalk, the glass walk, the arrow break, the rebar, all the business structure, licensing, permits, not hold harmless agreements, insurance, all of it. I teach them all that. And then corporations come in and they say, hey, we want to do this event in Boca Raton, or wherever. And then they come in and just hire us and write us a check. So to get back though to, the companies typically don't get back to me and say, hey, Dave, we had an 18% increase. Well, that's not true. Well, I found out more accidentally than anything else. I had one client who hired me, and within 3 months, their sales went up 16%. Now, was that because we did the firewalk? I don't know. I just know that that's what happened. So they were doing several things to take their company for growth, but that's a lot of growth. 16% in sales is quite a bit. And that happened within a short time after, we did the firewalk. So did it influence it? My answer is yes. How much? I don't know. I can't speak to it. But I've seen a whole lot of people come to events and go home and create extraordinary things, not only in business, but in life, all of it.
So are there events like throughout so if just an individual person wants to come just to experience it, not necessarily to learn how to do it,
right?
is that available?
They'd have to call me direct. They'd have to get a hold of me through my website and call me and say, hey, Dave, I'd like to do a private event with you.
Okay, so it's just like a group of friends or a group of people or something like that.
We could do that. If you get you an Airbnb and, then you come over to my house for the firewalk. We do it out here in my driveway, kind of. Of course, my driveway is out in the middle of the mountains. You could look up the mountain here and see a bear, for my driveway, right? I'd say that because I've lived here 8 years. I've seen one bear off my deck on the side of my house. But my point is, yes, it could be done. If you had a group of friends and you all wanted to do it, yes, we could figure out a way to do it. And I typically have them come here. I don't go there. Well, if you want me to go there, I'm going to charge you through the nose. I don't want to do it. But if you throw enough pictures of dead presidents at me, I'll probably say yes, right? Because that money's going to my grandkid. And so that's the leverage there. But typically I make you come here because it's an extraordinary place. I live in the Appalachian Mountains. I have mountain spring water coming into my home. That's what you drink. That's what you bathe in. The oxygen air quality where I live is spectacular. It's very majestic. This is, the splendor here in these mountains is extraordinary. So it's cool to have you here. That way, where there's grounding and cold water and things like this for showers. So, depending on what's going on with you, I can rock your world. I'll change your life, but you better be ready when you get here to do what I suggest you to do. Because the firewalk's part of it. Yeah, the board break's part of it. The glass walk is part of it. If you come privately, that's right. I teach you how to walk on broken glass. Arrow breaks, put the arrow here in your neck, put it up against the wall, step through and break it. Cold water showers in your morning. So I'm going to activate that muscle that creates the habits that will show you how to change your life. You're going to create new rituals. You're going to create new habits. You're going to stop negotiating with yourself. Those are, they're not that big. Nope. It's not that much pain.
It's probably less pain than whatever it is they're going through.
Exactly. Pick your pain. The pain of not accomplishing what you want in life and playing small, that's painful because you're going to get to the end and go, fuck. Why didn't I listen to myself? The regret is going to be excruciating. Don't do it. it's not that hard. The pain on the other side to get what you want in life is a lot less than the fucking pain at the end if you played small.
Yes.
Absolutely. Just go ask anybody who's on their deathbed.
Mm.
They're going to tell you, I wish I'd have done this and I wish I'd have done that and I didn't do it. You know what I mean? They go regret after regret after regret. And anybody listening to this already knows what they are. They're already stacking them because
Right.
that's what we do. We stack. So stop stacking and unstack them. Making it, maybe they come to the academy next year and I show you how to change people's lives unlike anything you could have ever imagined.
You know what? You
What
got,
I do.
as they say, you got to play to win. So I want to tell them, like, so y'all, the website is firewalkadventures.com. That's firewalkadventures.com is going to go in the show notes, of course. And Dave is also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. All those links are going to go in the show notes as well.
Cool.
And so I want you to give us like your last words of encouragement or whatever you want to say. Then I'm going to ask you some dad jokes to kind of close out the show. I thank you for your wealth of wisdom and everything and your very sharp intellect
Thank
on
you.
today. So any like last words that you
My
have?
pleasure, man. Kudos to you. It's the hosts that do all the work. I just get to come on your show and talk shit, and hopefully share some wisdom, some knowledge, and some experience, and some strength, and some hope, and encourage somebody to go. You know what? If that guy can do it, and he was all messed up on drugs and alcohol. Why can't I do it? Well, you can. Well, one of my favorite sayings is, and I say this a lot, and that is something one of my mentors left me, and he said, Dave, every human on this planet has two lives. And the second one starts when you realize you have only one. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. The two most important times in your life is the moment you're born and the moment you figure out why. And you're here for a reason. Go get dialed in with it. Because again, the bottom line is that you have no idea who you're going to affect or what you're going to say, or, maybe you're going to ask somebody a question one day. Maybe you're a guy that's out there with Tony Robbins and you turn around and go ask a bunch of people, well, wouldn't you at least like to watch? Well, okay. Well, wouldn't you at least like to watch? There's a guy out there floating around. I'm guessing hope he's still alive. That asked me a question that changed my life so beyond belief, who put me in a position to go change a lot of lives, right? You just being on the show tonight is being influenced by that guy because he's the one who asked the question. I believe if you ask quality questions, you'll get a quality answer. What a concept. Because how your brain works. Totally how it works. And then finally, one of the things I would say is, look, let's stop looking for heroes and be one.
Period.
Period.
Period. Amen to that. So dad joke number one, I made sure that these were fire related because I felt like it would fit into the theme. So
Fire away.
I see what you did there. I love it. What did the flame say to his buddies after he fell in love?
The flame say to his buddies after he fell in love, I finally found my spark.
So close. He said, I found the perfect match. But I'll accept that though, that I finally found my
Okay.
I'll accept that. It's close enough. You got one. I'll take it. So dad joke number two, and these are from scarymommy.com. Oh,
Scary mommies?
scarymommy.com.
Oh boy.
What do you
We
call
go.
a jacket? What do you call a jacket like one that you wear that goes up in flames?
A fire retardant suit? What do you call? You have to tell me, man.
I think that's super simple. A blazer.
Okay, fine. A blazer. That's funny because I had a dog named Blaze. Imagine. I did. I had a whippet. The little miniature greyhounds. Well, they run like 100 miles an hour or whatever it is. It's crazy. And so, in the Firewalk world, we named him Blaze.
Mm-hmm. So then the last one is, what did the firefighter say when he saw the church burning down?
So, sure. Holy smokes.
Right. Absolutely, he did.
Oh, man. Oh, the pressure was intense.
Hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
All right, well, I'll take it. That's 66 and a third, 2/3.
Okay, again, y'all, this has been the Honorable Dave Albin with Firewalk Adventures. The website is firewalkadventures.com, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube will go in the show notes. Dave, thank you so much for your time and your intellect on this day.
Thanks, man. You rock.
Thank you all so much for taking time to listen to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. It really means everything to me. Look, if you love the show, you can find more information and resources at sexdrugsandjesus.com or wherever you listen to your podcast. Feel free to reach out to me directly at devannon@sexdrugsandjesus.com and on Twitter and Facebook as well. My name is Devannon. It's been wonderful being your host today. And just remember that everything is going to be all right.